my point of the talk today is really to say that CCAs really can seize control of that data and bring a lot of those functions in-house by building an integrated data platform that they manage, that they own, that they control. This goes well beyond the idea of billing. Most likely CCAs are going to rely on external consultants and service providers to do some of that billing work, and I think that will remain the case for some time. But the value of data, the types of data go well beyond the EDI formats of billing and SQMD data. And it has a lot of other potential data streams that the CCA can leverage. And so really that process is probably going to be an incremental process. I'm not here today to say that you can do all of what I'm talking about immediately. In fact, I see this as a sort of a midterm process of building this steadily and incrementally over time. But that really starts with making sure that you hire data staff, people that understand the value of data and how to build value out of the data that's available to the CCA. That may involve initially using external consultants, and but the important thing is to identify people who can really understand that data and help you build a structure to leverage that data. It also is important for the CCAs to find a place to hold that data. We talk about big data, and those of you who have worked with some of this data, the interval data that Scott was talking about, know that this is, massive amounts of data, terabytes and terabytes. So one of the first steps is really finding a way to hold that data. My colleague at East Bay Community Energy, Taj Al-Razim, has been talking about how Google Cloud Platform is a relatively accessible and inexpensive way to do that. You have some concerns around confidentiality on some of that data, but it can certainly be cleaned and stored in the cloud in a way that's safe and secure. The point is that this can be relatively inexpensive to get started, and grabbing a hold of that interval data and finding a place for it and being able to run some analytics is really a way to start to mine that data for that value that I'm talking about. This really leads into things like better load profiling, granular hourly load profiling, down to the customer level or the customer rate code level or across rate class, so residential versus non-residential. Being able to look at the hourly load curve starts to produce a lot of value for the CCAs who are starting to build programs that can really attack expensive parts of the load and reduce that. It also sets up the ability to do more accurate and more granular load forecasting, looking forward into the future. And as Scott alluded to, the idea of supporting better, more customized rate designs that actually make sense or can help drive participation in DER programming. That sort of leads us to program management, program development. I would start there and say, the idea that a CCA can use that data to say, here's what's costing me the most. This is the expensive part of my load. The evening ramping hours, for example, when LMP pricing on the market tends to spike. Attacking those loads with energy efficiency and demand response can really pay dividends to the CCA and reduce the cost of service and really benefit all of the customers in the CCA territory. So data-driven program development, right? Really targeting these programs on the most expensive loads is another benefit of this. Additionally, the idea that the CCA, if it has this integrated data platform in-house, can track what the program outcomes actually are. And this is an important innovation that we're just starting to scratch the surface on, but the idea that we can do EM and V in-house on what these programs are to inform refining those programs and also support reporting to the board and to the community what these programs are actually doing, what's working, what's not, and being able to inform decisions about making changes. Another really key concept that this enables is what we call pay-for-performance contracting. You really can't really do the pay-for-performance strategy until you have a way to really accurately track what the program outcomes are. But pay-for-performance can really reduce the risk for a CCA who's trying to deliver these programs by saying they only pay for the load reductions that they actually achieve. And that's an important innovation that this kind of data can really enable. That sort of leads us to what we're talk about as customer engagement. Some very exciting customer engagement potential. the idea that the CCA can connect its customers with their own data. So many of you in PG&E territory are familiar with the My Energy portal that you can log in, you can see your energy use, you can run some of your own analytics, and you can see programs that are available to you provided by PG&E. Well, CCAs can do the same thing, and this data platform really enables that as well. We talk about the creation of a digital marketplace so that customers can log in and really engage with the CCA and see what value is there for them, providing that sort of online digital experience to immerse them, to engage them into the programs that the CCA provides. And then also empowering the customer service representatives with this data. It's important if you think about a customer who might call and have some complaints or some issue that the CSR has the ability to see that customer's account, see their energy use data, and understand what programs might connect that would help alleviate this customer's concern. Maybe there's a different rate design. Maybe there's a program that will really save them some money. It's difficult for the CSRs to be able to do that if they don't have access to this kind of a data platform. It also can enable the ability to reward those customers for their contributions to load reductions and load shaping, right? So providing an online, the ability to credit their bill automatically is really dependent on a robust data system. So if they participate in an energy efficiency program and we want to give them a rebate, this data platform and that online digital marketplace can really enable that. That all leads us to some pretty interesting, innovative ideas. I would put this at sort of the mid to long-term goal, but the idea that we can enable customized rate designs, as Scott was talking about, or demand response programs starts to really take shape. We also have the ability with this data platform to sort of enable what we talk about, virtual power plants, as Laura mentioned in her opening statement. All of that is really dependent on very granular data. Being able to aggregate distributed energy resources in a way that allows the CCA to control them, to shed load, to shift supply, and to actively manage its risks on an hourly basis as opposed to settling everything in the day-ahead market. That's an innovation that we really need CCAs to be looking at and thinking about and planning for. And again, that all really comes back to the data platform. Very briefly, I just want to talk about, so many of you might be thinking, like, what kind of data are we talking about? This really is customer energy use data. It's also things like weather data, in addition, socioeconomic data, and what the CCA's portfolio, what its contracts, what its resource adequacy information is, and then lastly, really the CCA's accounting data. What's its budget? What's the revenues projections look like? What's the monthly cash flow? All of these things really combine to this concept of an integrated data platform. Really, last thing I want to say is that starts to enable, provide a solid foundation for delivering these DER programs that we're talking about today. That's really all I had for you today. I look forward to some questions and some discussion, and thank you.
Is there an HDMI?
Yeah. You have your own right.
Good afternoon. My name is Cca Insights. I'm with Terra Verde Energy. I only have a few slides. I don't really have 10 minutes worth of talking points. I normally don't do these discussions or present at conferences. I think about once a year, my partner Rick Brown signs me up with this kind of work, and I'm not really good at it, but I think he just enjoys watching me suffer. So I hope this goes well. Just to tell you about Terra Verde, in case you haven't already heard from us, we'll stop by our booth downstairs. We're an advisory, development, and asset management company. We work primarily with public sector entities in California. Our customer types are primarily schools, water agencies, transit agencies, and now CCAs. And our goal and mission is to help decarbonize the electricity grid and help our customers get empowered to make better choices and have options around what they do with their electricity costs and usage profiles. And to that end, we help identify what sort of like solar storage, the whole DER vertical of options that could be available to a customer type, figure out what benefits them, and then help them show the options, educate them. And once they have the choice in front of them, we work with them to make a decision and implement those infrastructure upgrades or program developments. And then whenever everything is done and commissioned, we stay with them, monitor the assets, make sure they're getting the benefit that was promised and projected. And if there's any variance, why is the variance happening and what's the reasons behind it. So in the DER and CCA sector, I should probably show this. This is why I'm not good at this kind of stuff. In the DER and CCA sector, we've been fortunate to have two opportunities to work with CCAs here in California. One of our first opportunities that I'll talk about is a grant that we received in partnership with Center for Climate Protection and a few others who are actually in attendance as well. And this was a grant that was awarded to us as a group from California Energy Commission with the ultimate goal to work with CCAs to develop a tool and deploy 3 demonstration projects in order to figure out, is there a method for CCAs to help promote growth of DERs in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that's a high-level target of the program. The details of it obviously have to do with what DERs to do, which ones to prioritize, and why. What's the benefit of them to the customers of CCAs, to the CCA themselves, and if possibly and if available, that we can work with the utilities and manage the grid. Are there any benefits that could be there for them? So it could be a win-win-win solution for all. Some of the sort of data-related challenges or items we are dealing with as part of this grant and this project is it has to do with obviously collecting customer information and usage profiles is sort of a baseline task. That information we know it's available. It is a lot of data, but in the sort of Silicon Valley big data, it actually is not that much volume of data. We're not talking about exabytes, it is terabytes. It's very much manageable to store and to collect and slice and dice. I think the issue is primarily around access to the data. That's more of a challenge than actually getting the data and doing math on it. But that's just only the customer usage profile data. As it has been mentioned, the more granular, the better. If you can get hourly or 15-minute interval for commercial entities, that's the best way for us to be able to analyze the results of the tool that we're building, to figure out for every specific customer type, what are the benefits and advantages of them deploying these DERs, and how that in turn helps the CCA, which in this case is Marine Clean Energy, if I didn't mention, how in turn it helps them make decisions on their own procurement for energy and the programs that they're promoting with their customers. And that's really the second part, and I think the more exciting part of the project that we're working on, which is we're getting a chance to work alongside MCE with both their procurement team and their programs team in order to figure out what are the data points, what are the decision points that a CCA would need to consider in order to decide what is the priority of DERs I should go and approach. Because the list is pretty long: rooftop solar and storage and EV infrastructure and smart thermostat, this location or that location, then you hear locational net benefits, and it gets pretty confusing. And there's a lot of options that you can make, and sometimes when you have a lot of options, you get paralyzed as far as you don't know which way to go. So our goal is to help disseminate this data that we get from the customer side as to what they're using, what the profiles are like, what are the costs of the energy, delivery of it, congestion charges, the RA requirements, RA benefits that we could have with some DERs, and put that all together to help a program manager and operator at the CCA to decide if we want to promote rooftop solar and storage and EV charging, we should go target these sort of customers in this area. and here's a list of reasons why and what the benefits of it are. So that's the first program, and the second one that we have been fortunate to get awarded by National Renewable Energy Labs is also in partnership with Center for Climate Protection, and we're working with Lancaster Choice Energy and Peninsula Clean Energy. And this one, the headline of it is basically, can you build a tool that helps CCAs figure out how to design smart terrace or smart race or smart race structures? These words get used interchangeably. But the gist of it is, as has been mentioned earlier on today, CCAs right now, they start with the utility time periods, with the pricing that they provide. They subtract from their PCIA, maybe franchise fees, and they apply a discount, and from there they go about and do the procurement planning to figure out how they can stay below that cost in order to be operable. There's a restriction there to the CCAs with having to follow the sets of rules that utilities set, which is, makes it very easy to communicate those programs and those rates to customers. It also makes the math easy on the back end to do the bill calculations. There are no, obviously there's no physical requirements, but there are no actual written requirements that you have to follow the same time periods. You could come up with your own time periods and your own peak periods, off-peak periods, whatever time of use profile you want to apply to a customer type, you can do that. So the challenge for us here in terms of data is being able to build a set of gears, and the tool is supposed to be a native tool where any CCA or load-serving entity can plug in their objectives as to what they want to promote, and our tool helps them figure out what are the signals, the data points that they need to send to this subset of customers. And if they want to promote solar paired with storage and have some discharging capability between hours of 15 and 22, then what are the inputs that this tool needs to have and signals that it needs to provide to these customers, so the CCA can in turn take that rate schedule, go to these subset of customers and sign them up for these programs and incentivize them that this is a good decision for you as it is good for us as well. I'll say one more item about the data challenges that we are facing in the industry as a general. It ties to these projects we're working on. We're hoping as we're working alongside these activities and the CCAs, ultimately we get to a place where we can also connect these tools with the data sources that the utilities provide. Providing benefits for customer load reduction, energy cost savings, RA savings, RA reduction, congestion savings, all that stuff is great. It's valuable. One of the biggest benefits that's available for DERs to unlock is obviously deferring or eliminating capital upgrade projects that utilities have to do, whether it has to do with upgrading a 12 kV line or substation bus or a transformer. Those kind of projects, they have a huge impact. They have big returns and big interest that everybody in the territory pays for. And right now, DERs and homeowners and CCAs are helping delay and avoid these kind of projects, but that value is not being shared and is not being signaled as much to CCAs or customers of CCAs. There's been some pilot projects, there's been some demonstrations, about 9 minutes already, I thought I'd be done way ago. There's been some demonstration opportunities that have been going on, but the data as far as ease of connection and volume of it is not available. One of the areas where we're pushing is working with the interconnection capacity analysis program that's going on right now in California, and in order to help get access to these really beautiful maps that utilities have made for us, so you can go click on single wires and see what the load profile looks like, but they don't actually want to give us back-end data where we can use, with use of APIs, to get high volume of information the way we want it, so we can do massive cluster analysis. So our hope is we can unlock that challenge, get that connection built out, and connect these tools to those services and help provide a much bigger benefit and much bigger capability to CCAs to promote these programs in the territories. Thank you.
I'll be done in like 2 minutes. Come on. So, hi there. Spent a lot of time on the colors and everything, so I hope this works. Okay. All right. Okay, great. I think we're good. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Choi. I am the Director of CCA Business Solutions for Calpine Solutions. Just wanted to, I see a lot of familiar faces and also some new faces, so I wanted to spend a little time talking about our background in the CCA space. We've been proud to be serving CCA since 2010 when MC launched. So I just wanted to kind of do a quick recap of where we've been, where we are today, and how we are planning to support DER and big data needs going forward. So before we get into the meat of the slides, the main focus for us has been, really since day one, being the billing agent, the data manager, the call center provider for CCAs, is to provide a solid foundation for their operational requirements so that they can, be on a stable footing and continue to grow. And we've been proud to continue that sort of roadmap and work on our fundamentals. And so over time, what that's done is kind of led us into this big data space, because as CCAs consume lots of data and generate lots of data, we quickly get into the scale of big data. So let's do a little walk down memory lane, and by memory lane I mean last year, because things have evolved so quickly that it really is kind of a what are we doing for you recently kind of thing. So a couple of things to highlight our core services from last year. We've implemented data management and call center for 9 new CCA programs. So we are up to 14 operational CCAs that we support right now. And that since last year, Jan 2017, that's been comprised of 36 enrollment phases. So there are 36 distinct master enrollments, and they can range from 200,000 in the case of PC to even a few hundred if it's a targeted enrollment phase. So lots of activity there. We've worked with IOUs to improve their processes for data management and to coordinate on customer services. We have opened up 2 new call centers, which we're proud of. We have a new call center in Santa Rosa, which is in a Class A facility, houses 42 agent seats, and is dedicated to the CCA business. And we've opened a second call center in Pittsburgh with the help of Future Build, which is a local workforce development agency. So a couple of call outs on the working with the IOUs. Our kind of most recent example of that's been working with SDG&E. They, as everybody knows, Solana Beach, and a quick shout out to Solana Beach, they launched Friday, so good for them. They launched, and we just worked with the utility to make sure that their data processes were kind of up to speed, to make sure that all of the different data needs and processes were being supported on time for their launch. And with the Pittsburgh facility, so Pittsburgh is part of the new phase, the most recent phase of MCE. Pittsburgh is an underserved community there. They do need jobs in that facility, so our call center is bringing 24 jobs once it's fully built out that are going to be supported by IBEW. And then lastly, internally, we've been growing pretty rapidly ourselves to keep up with the CCA movement. So we now have 8 managers for the CCA business, 67 dedicated personnel specializing in IT, data, billing, account management. So as I say, all of these activities have led us into the big data space. In addition to kind of the pure billing and interval usage data. We have, data from our CRM that's less structured. We have, notes from our call center representatives when they engage with customers. We have PDFs of bill copies. We have, lists from the IOUs. So there's just lots of different types of data. So we've implemented a couple of tools a couple of years ago that kind of help us manage that data. So one of them is a speech analytics software package to broaden the way that we can look at call center data, specifically recordings, to look at the nature of the interaction, to make sure that our agents are performing well and that we're detecting what issues are coming up from the customer base. More recently, we've developed the Power BI platform. Power BI is a Microsoft tool, so it's a little bit of a out of the box, but the benefit there is that we can integrate data from the CRM billing system, interval usage to some extent, and provide a more kind of a 360 look on an account by account basis. So that's kind of a precursor to where we are now. So we're now, as folks have talked about, we're kind of at the dawn of this era of big data. And again, sort of through our journey through the CCA, movement, we're well into the tens of terabytes of data. And the challenge has been that people need different types of data for different things, and we have different data in different service systems. So what we've done is to launch a big data advanced analytics package, and we call it Cca Insights. That name was actually coined by our IT manager of CCA, George Stefan, is there. So just to make sure that everybody knows who coined that term. So Cca Insights we're pretty excited about. It runs on a platform that's developed by a company called Good Data, and the main intent is to provide customers or CCA clients with easy and fast access to all of this interval data. We're adding weather data, ISO prices, rates, and all kinds of other, both current data sets and future data sets. Since I think we've acknowledged that this DER space is moving so fast, we're obviously not going to say we know everything and we're going to design the system to do everything, because things are going to be moving over time. Good Data brings a wealth of data expertise, including advanced analytics capabilities. And if folks have not heard of Good Data, so their technology supports half of the Fortune 500. They've been named 3 years in a row into the Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Business Intelligence and Analytics. And their solution is both agile and scalable, so that's really a perfect fit for CCAs, in particular for DERs, because again, we know that ahead of time we're going to be doing a lot of development in conjunction with our CCA clients to build out this tool, to build out the platform, so it's of most value to our clients. So I'll just jump into some of the screenshots, and so we're still sort of finishing up our beta version, so there's lots of refinements and enhancements, but this gives you a little bit of an idea of what the product, the platform can do. The dashboard on the left is more of a high-level look down on the CCA program. So this is kind of the total load of the CCA for a given period of time. It shows the peak load and average load over, say a number of days, say 30 days in this case. Another dashboard on the right. So this is what we call our data quality dashboard. So one of the things that we've heard from our clients is, there's all this AMI data. Some of it's raw, some of it's validated, some of it's revenue quality, and we've heard it's hard to manage and incomplete at times, and some of those things are true. And what we've done is built a tool out so that we can visualize what that looks like. So in this time period, which is 7 months in 2017, you can see there's a couple of days there where we've got holes in the data, and that could either be because we get an incomplete data file from PG&E, or the mapping from the data file to the SAIDs is incomplete. So, it provides a little bit more context for what we're looking at really, 1 minute? Okay. Another dashboard shows a little bit more refinement into the program. So this is where on the left, this is called our account analysis dashboard. So on the left, you can drill down into the city, you can drill down into the rate code, customer class. And what this shows in particular is a group of customers in a particular city that generates a lot of solar, and it's overlaid with ISO pricing, so you can see A, what the market value might be for that generation, and B, you can say, well, maybe we can target these customers and they might be great candidates for battery storage to shift some of that generation to the evening peak. And you can look at that data in a lot of different ways. You can look at it at peak versus average, kilowatt hours consumed versus generated. Here you can see sort of the effect. This is a year on year graph, so you can see the effect of, or the impact of, say, these solar installations over time. So just to finish real quick, at a high level, what our intent is to provide our clients with a platform so that they can be enabled to identify and manage these DER programs. So again, we feel like we know a lot about DERs, but we're by no means the expert, and I don't think there is a true expert. I think it's a collective effort. We've engaged with some of the experts and some that you've already met here in this room and in the conference, Allgain, Integral Analytics, that should be Customized Energy, Itron. So we're trying to get as much input as possible to deliver this valuable product, and certainly we're looking for more partnerships so that we can have a much more grounded solution for CCAs. And there you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thinking about the sequence of events, right, that you described, which was very useful. What are the right questions to start with?
Well, I think what I would say is, one of the big questions, one of the things I'm hoping that CCAs really do is request the interval data from PG&E. A lot of people don't realize that under the CCA info tariff, this data is actually available to you now, whether you've launched or not. You can request multiple years of interval data for every account in your service territory. That's a great question to ask up front. Request that data. Really look for a way to hold that data, as I was talking about. But, as I mentioned, there are some inexpensive places to store that data available now. So that's really a good starting place. I think next it's really looking at your service providers. In your case, maybe it's Calpine. Obviously, they're showing you some interesting tools there. What are those tools? What's available to me now with the service providers I have in place? I think that's another great question. I think beyond that, it's really asking the market what they can bring to you. So an RFQ or an RFP that really solicits some of these more advanced and sophisticated data services that are available in the market. I think a lot of CCAs don't realize how much is actually out there right now. The IOUs have many, really decades of experience, and they have relationships, and they're leveraging those. CCAs are really new, and I think that they don't understand or realize that there's a lot of power and capabilities that are available to you now. And so I would put an RFQ or an RFP out sort of as a next step.
So if I can enhance that question, the customers I've worked with request their data from PG&E, and that's what they get, is the data from PG&E, and they don't get their CCA data from PG&E. And so now there's this data hunt going on. How can big data be leveraged to solve that problem? Where do you see that going?
That's stuff in here.
Anybody?
I'd be a little more interested. Can you flesh that out? When you say they're getting CCA data only?
No, so if you request your bill from your data from PG&E, I'm just trying to play a little riff on this because that's my job, right? So they request the data from PG&E, they get the PG&E data, which is not necessarily their energy data. It might be data related to their infrastructure, right? If I think about this as consumption of the commodity and the wires piece. How do we educate customers, or how do we leverage big data in a way that it's really enabling to say, will all my data be in one place, or how does that go, and how do the customers have an easy experience? We talked about maybe this is eventually going to move to a decentralized place. So that will be my lightning round question. I'll just give you a little heads up there. But how do we make that customer experience seamless, easy? Because right now, my experience with my clients has been it's not so easy.
So, I can-
Great.
So, so with a solution like the CCA Insights or other solutions that are out there, I'm sure. So, you know, our primary task is to store and manage data for our CCA clients that is CCA data specific. But there's no reason why we can't integrate data from other sources, including non-CCA data, including weather or demographic information, things like that, and apply it as long as you can relate it to CCA accounts. And in some cases, CCAs may not want to limit the data to their accounts because there are accounts within their service territory they don't serve, so maybe they have an offering that would appeal to those customers. But I think it's a matter of just being able to relate whatever data there is to pieces of the CCA service footprint, whether it's towns or accounts or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just add to that. I think Chris made a good point about PG. In the case of PG&E, for example, their ED&M, energy diagnostic and tools that they provide, the O-Power solution essentially. And I think for a lot of CCAs, they've been willing to rely on PG&E's engagement tools. And the question is, I think, do you want to have your own portal? Do you want to have your own customer engagement experience? Do you want to own that? I recognize that the portal that PG&E provides has been paid for with T&D dollars. Those are your customers' T&D dollars. So maybe it seems duplicative. But if you really want to own that customer experience, if you want to own that customer engagement and offer unique CCA-specific products and have them see your services through the lens of your eyes, then that probably is a better option. And so that's certainly one way in terms of the customer experience to change the game.
I guess I'll add our experience. So with the CCAs or utilities, they are required to provide you all the underlying data as well as the billing data for the CCA as well. I mean, the billing setup are, for the most part, has been, PG&E bills you the way they would bill you. Then they give you a discount, or they reduce their own generation component of the bill. Then they add on the CCA charges, which kind of makes it look like the CCA is like charging you money, even though they're giving you a discount. So the customer has to be aware to figure out if they're getting a discount or not, which is a little, not honest. But that's how they do it. And then they add on all the PCIA and franchise fees and whatever else that's there. So the utilities have all this data. They ultimately collect the billing back from people like Calpine, and so you are supposed to be getting both the CCA bill component and the utility component. I'll say things that will make it makes our jobs, I'd say harder, but actually just creates effort. I mean, we have to actually spend time to figure this stuff out. Is sometimes the billing periods between the CCA billing and the utility billing don't match up, and it just goes without any quality check or any validation. Often enough, it's just by 1 day overlap, and it might be minutia. But when you're talking about a investment grade project where a customer wants to deploy, let's say storage or something at their site, knowing the exact billing periods is important to actually do the math right. A lot of times we've seen when somebody switches and opts into a CCA territory, the utilities actually change the account number, and you have to now go and stitch back 3 years of accounting data between pre-CCA, post-CCA, and make sure these are the same accounts to get a good history built out. So it creates basically math jobs and computer jobs for us to do this kind of work. It doesn't have to be that way, but they could solve these things at the very top end and help make a lot of life easier.
Just real quick, I'll say, I think that's a critical, what Ollie's talking about, sort of cleaning and structuring the data and mapping it out. That's a really important first step. That's pretty complex. You're probably going to need some help for that. But once that's done, as I was talking about, that provides this foundation really for best-in-class service providers to come in, tap into the data streams that they need. one of the really exciting things that we're looking at right now is building energy management systems, whether that's home or commercial. There are structures out there, SunVerge, Powerly, OATI, some of these long existing platforms that are tailor-made for, engaging customers with their energy data. And so once the data platform is set up, it's pretty easy to plug those guys in, give them the data streams. We talk about stub outs, creating stub outs for these best-in-class service providers to get the data that they need. But that ends up looking like an app at the customer level where they can see not only their energy use, but hey, look, the CCA just sent me a price signal. If I want to participate, I can save money on my energy bill. Yes, I opt in, right? And so that kind of customer engagement piece, the digital marketplace that I was talking about, it's already out there. The idea is that the CCAs need to build a data platform that allows those service providers to tap in and provide that service to their customers.
Great, so I'm going to take that as a maybe decentralized, maybe centralized, but ultimately in the customer's hands, so enhancing the customer engagement, which will take us right back to the beginning of our conversation. Decentralized, centralized, and how long does it take us to get there? Lightning round.
Well, I think it starts as a centralized thing. I think we've got to consolidate the data, bring it in-house, get it cleaned up, and make it available to all those service providers. But I do think that ultimately ends up at the grid edge, and that these service providers are sort of at the edge of the data platform in a way. They're not a centralized service provider. And so I think it's moving to the grid edge, but I think it really has to start with some consolidation.
I would say centralized as well, and centralized actually to the CCA. And so right now, we're thinking about how to best position the CCA to be that go-to trust center for energy information on behalf of customers, and that does include initiatives like a customer portal with apps and pulling in as much of the data that customers get from the local utility and then some, because CCAs can offer such a diverse array of programs that are very specific to their own customers, not system-wide.
Great. Ali, you want to chime in?
I think in general, yes, the answers have been, has been said are correct. I'll say that a problem though we have had as an industry, as people who want to promote customers or homeowners, businesses to enable themselves with these technologies, it has been that the data has been centralized to the utilities. So I don't know if I can go around and say we also want it centralized to us.
Yeah.
So yes, the CCA should get their own data for the customer. The customer should have it. The utility should have it because they operate the grid as well. So maybe that's going down. Everybody has the data, and that's the decentralized answer. Maybe that's what what I think we're heading to. But ultimately, though, we should be able to validate the performance of the grid, the performance of DERs, and the benefits equally at multiple locations, right? The homeowners should know, CCA should know, utilities should know as well. And so I guess the access to data should be open to all, whether data is stored in one data center or it's a distributed ledger everywhere. I think there are enough smart engineers that can figure that out. I can't answer that question, but I know that we all have to be able to access the same data so we can stop this distrust game of, we own the data and nobody else can touch it, because that has been our problem, to fight against that.
Thanks very much. Also appreciate you dealing with our technical difficulties and challenges. I'm assuming the presentations will be available to the conference attendees. So I'm sure you can't wait to go see what those slides look like. Thanks very much for participating, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.